Morning. Ooh, I felt that. I thought I might have to ask again. I just want to reconnect with all of you. It's been a little while since I've been here, and I feel like I'm at home. So how about if we all connect together and just turn to somebody next to you. And this is an African sacred greeting. And look in the eyes of somebody next to you. No, do it now. And repeat after me. I know that whatever has brought us together is for a higher and nobler cause. Thank you for showing up in my life. I love you. Thank you. How'd that feel? It's a different way of connecting. It's just a little bit different. I have a group of friends where we don't say, like when somebody says, how are you doing? We don't, fine, well, I'm good, all of those things, because it's kind of a rote memory thing that we repeat, right? So we say resonating in this, resonating in that. And what we do is we anchor that energy in our day today. So many of you asked me how I was doing, and I said resonating in love. So try it next time. And then the reverse of that is instead of asking your friend, maybe, or a family member, how are you doing? Say, what good have you been up to? Shifts it a little bit. So just a little couple of little hints there on how to resonate in good. This is a little bit of a challenge for me because I'm a mover, so I'll try to keep my mouth here as I move when I talk. That's my bad. I didn't ask anybody to do anything for microphones. But anyways, so how many here are in relationship? Yeah, so the truth is everybody's in relationship. You're in relationship with friends, family. We just mentioned a few of those, right? We have employers. We're in relationship with self. We have our divine relationship. We have relationship like Paul was talking about in his invocation with money, with our bodies, our health, our careers. So we're actually in relationship with everything. So that leads me to the talk title, which is It's My Story and It's Sticking to Me. Little different way of looking at it. And I thought it was appropriate because we have expanded horizons, right? For this month, that's our theme, expanded horizons. So if we have a story that's constantly sticking to us, how are we expanding? And I know that Reverend Patty gets up here every Sunday that she's speaking, and she looks to expand and does expand our minds and our way of thinking. So when we think about relationships, how many of the gazillion relationships that we have would we like to shift, that we'd like to expand, that we'd like them to be better, more loving, more support, right? Do we have, does anybody here want to change a little bit of a relationship with something or someone? Well, today we'll focus a little bit on a someone. So maybe it's a friendship, maybe it's a past relationship, whatever it may be. So if we're thinking about that one relationship that we'd like to shift, there's somebody that comes to mind, right? It could be a coworker that just kind of rubs you a little wrong. Or they could rub you a little right, I don't know. Uh-oh, is that Reverend Potty Mouth coming through? I think the energy in this area here is happening. So let's go back to that relationship. So if we have this relationship that isn't, it's not its optimal, let's say. We probably know their story, right? We understand what their story is because if they would change, right? If they would just see it differently like I do, right? Right? These are all the things that would help us understand and have them maybe even have used the words, if they could only get it, right? How many of us have said that, right? They just don't get it. They just don't get it. And that's a lot with kids. But anyways, so if we look at that relationship and we think, how could it be a little bit better? What could we do? Well, since we understand their story, right? Because we sit and go, okay, well, if they did this or they did that and they did this, what about our story? What is the story that we're bringing to the relationship? So not only do we hold people in the bondage to who they are, and I say it that way because that's got the energetic vibration for me, is that bondage. It's like when we meet up with somebody, we hold them in who they've always been, right? I mean, because that's kind of comfortable for us to make sure that they are who they've always been, because it's comfortable for me, because then I don't have to change or behave in a different way. So if we have their story down, right, and we've held them in bondage, what do you think they're doing to us? Same thing. They're holding us to bondage in who we used to be in any given moment. And the truth is in every in-breath and with every out-breath, we're anew. We're not the person that we were just seconds ago, nor are we the same person that will be 2 seconds from now. We're constantly changing and constantly moving. So if we allow somebody to hold us in bondage, how does that help us stay in the story? So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to walk and see if you can still hear me. Is it okay, or shall I stay? Stay? You can hear me? Okay, so as long as you can hear me, and I have a big cheerleader type voice. So I had a horse accident where he fell on me in 2001. And I ended up having 2 back surgeries. I convalesced for a year, blah, blah, blah. Those of you that know me know that I probably have never even told you this. There's probably a few of you here, like my husband, that knows this because he was there convalescing. Let's give my husband a round of applause because this man's amazing. He puts up with me on a daily basis. And so if we look at what it is, thank you, John, that being held in bondage, so I've had back surgery. You don't know it. I have a bad back, whatever it is. So the people that haven't seen me in a while that were in my life during that time, the whole body language, everything changes to, oh, how's your back? Right? I mean, it's like that's the holding me in bondage because that's who they knew me as. And that's who I probably defined myself as at the time because, oh, I can't do that because of my back, right? Oh, I can't ride on that roller coaster because of my back. There were I can't sit up in that chair because of my back. So all of this became my story for probably a good 2 years. And what's interesting is when I chose to change the story that was sticking to me, because that's what it was doing, is the more I told it, the deeper it was ingrained. And it became my truth. It became my reality. I couldn't sit in that chair. I couldn't do half the things I wanted to do simply because my back. But when I made a conscious decision to make that change in my story, amazing things happen. Today, it's like I don't even think about my back. I'm so grateful for my back because it gets me to and fro, and it's strong and it's steady, and it allows me to lift up my grandchild, hug people. It's the center of who I am, which is love, and that's my back. So, if we look at how we hold others in bondage and how we allow others to hold us in bondage, we can start changing it simply by our words. So when I decided to make a change and people started to still want to hold me in that, and trust me, it's scary for everybody else because you do change. And they're used to keeping you in the story because it's comfortable for them. If you change and grow and expand your horizons, they're going to have to change and grow. And that's scary to the majority of people out there, right? I mean, I'm not speaking anything you guys don't already know. So, when they ask me, how's your back? I'm like, My back, it's fantastic. How's your arm? I'll just throw it in it's like, what? Now see how we got out of that rote memory? How you doing? Fine. Chew, bless you, thank you. It's this robotic way that we talk that we don't actually, like, wake them up. So we can do that by just simply starting with something different. How's your arm? How's your toe? Whatever it is. Let's change the story, right? When they say, how you doing? You go, resonate and enjoy. Wait a minute, I was waiting for you to say fine, so you'd ask me and I could say fine, right? So let's just start thinking about that. So if this is the story that we're allowing to stick to us, maybe that's where the challenge is. So let's take it back to that relationship. So I just gave you a little example of the back thing. But if we actually are looking at the story that we've told in the relationship, whether it was verbal or whatever, that isn't so good, that one that we want to shift a little bit, what could we do differently in telling that story for ourselves? Because remember, when we start to shift, everything around us starts to shift, which reminds me of Jesus', this is one of his sayings, and I'm not a Bible person per se, but I love this saying, as I be lifted up, those be lifted up onto me. And I look at that as I have an obligation to raise my vibration to the highest vibration possible. And to me, that's love. So I have that obligation to myself, because then what's going to happen out there? It's going to be a love fest, right? Because I'm resonating in joy and love and peace and harmony. So let's look at that story that's sticking to us, that might be creating the challenge that we have. It's like our past relationships. What happens if you take a look at this one that's bothering us right now, that's challenging us right now, chances are there's some baggage there from a past relationship. And I say baggage in the way of a suitcase. And what I mean by that is, let's take that suitcase and we have all of our comfortable clothes in it, right? Maybe even our comfortable shoes and some accessories and so forth. And we've packed our suitcase because we're in a relationship. And it's all our comfortable things. It's all the things, all the habits, all the traits, everything that we've always had and always have been. Our story, right? It's in our little suitcase and our little travel bag. And we walk into the next relationship and we put it on the counter or whatever. And then everybody's putting their best foot forward, right? And you're doing all of the romantic things and you're just having a great time. And you're not really in your story, right? Because, well, if you told them their story, then they might not like you as much, right? But slowly but surely, we unzip the bag and we pull out my favorite purple shirt. Guilt, right? Whatever. And we hang it up. Next thing you know, we're pulling out a pair of pants and we're hanging it up. Now all these pieces of our story, which is in our baggage, our suitcase, is being hung up, put in the drawers, and we're starting to get right back into our comfortable way of being, our story. Well, what happens in that relationship? Let's say it ends, and we're going to go into another relationship. Chances are during that relationship over here, we've added some pieces of clothing, right? We've added a dress and maybe a suit jacket and a pair of slacks, whatever, and we add it into our bag. So we've gone from our overnight case, now we got a little tag along, right? And we're just tagging it along. It still fits in the overhead if we fly, right? And we go into, so you can see where this is going, right? By the time, there's nobody here I know does this. I do this, so I'm just sharing my story with you. So let's fast forward. I was going to say no one under 18 in here probably. So we've probably had a few relationships. So that little overnight bag, we're pulling it along. And it takes us a little bit longer maybe to unpack, not to unpack it all, but we start unpacking it sooner because we're like, they're going to either like us or they're not, right? I'm going to be who I am. So now I got the big, huge thing, that I'm unzipping that I had to sit on to get it closed when I left that last relationship. So now I start unpacking. So what is it? It's our story. It's the story that has stuck with us until we decide to change something. And it's so subtle and so sneaky that we allow other people to tell our story for us. Have you ever noticed, this is a perfect example in what we do here. Change your thinking, change your mind. Change your thinking, change your life. Well, I'm going to change my mind, too, which is part of my life. So when we look at that and we say, okay, so if I'm going to make a different decision and I'm going to pull something out that no longer serves me, it has to be replaced with something. Because the universe abhors a vacuum, right? So what do we need to do? Well, if we get rid of one piece of clothing, now I sound like I'm like an organizing person, right? They say, if you buy a new one, bring it in, you got to take an old one out. Well, I guess that's kind of true, except for if we're going to take a piece of clothing out, maybe one of the characteristics to our story, one of the threads, one of the piece of clothing, whatever we want to call it, in our story, we have to replace it with something good. So maybe we made a decision early on that if we ever open ourselves up, they're not going to love us, right? Or if we do open ourselves up to love, they're going to leave. And so we've made that decision, and now every story goes forward with that same thread. So once we get rid of that thread, we have to replace it with something. So let's repeat something. This just came to me. I am love. I am loved. And I am loving. There you go. So it could be that simple of a repeat into yourself so that it comes back and fills that gap of the thing that you've taken out. So are you guys open to doing just a little quick exercise? Little process? Okay. Yay! Thank you. So Darlene's an expert at this. It's the truth. We're going to do a little center of love. So if you're willing, allow your eyes to close. And I want you to think of a time when you were, let's think of the person that you would like the relationship to change, to become more supportive, more loving, more whatever. You included in that relationship because it takes the two. Okay, and I'm sure everybody has one. And now I want you to go to a time and think of a time when you felt the most love. It could be with a person, a place, a thing. And I want you just to be there. And when you have it, remember how you felt. You were on top of the world, really high, really giddy. Your energy was so different. You allowed people to cut in front of you in traffic, maybe even in line at the grocery store. You opened doors for people because you were resonating in the vibration of love. You felt so good, so on top of the world. Anything was possible. You're in that possibility zone. Now I want you just to bring in a color. If that love that you're feeling right now had a color, what would it be? And if it had a smell, bring that in. A texture, a sound, a taste. Bring that all in with that high vibrating, loving feeling. Now, as you breathe in, I want you to think of this person that you would like to have a better relationship with. And breathe that in. And as you exhale, remembering the colors, the taste, the smell, the texture of love, that you've coined it. Now that love that you feel and that relationship that you're looking to enhance, I want you just to encompass it all in that loving vibration. And as you breathe in, just lift it to the sun with I loved. And as you exhale down, just exhale down into your heart where you're just going to anchor it with I am love. And let's do that again with the person in mind and the loving vibration with all of your senses. Lift it to the sun with I loved. And exhale down into your center in your heart with I am love. And one more time, just lifting all of that up into the sun. I love. And exhaling out into your center with I am love. Go ahead and allow your eyes to open when you feel called to do so. Do you feel a little shift in a vibration of how you feel towards this person possibly? So what we did is we took kind of an airy-fairy idea of love, right? Because many people, however many people are in here, is how many definitions of love that there are. Everybody has a different definition of love. Oh man, I'm just getting another quote that Jesus said. Sorry. But Jesus said, in my Father's house there are many mansions. And I believe that means that within this house, Father's house, within me, are many dimensions of love. I love my children differently than I love my spouse. I love my parents differently than I love my animals. I love my animals differently than I love chocolate. So there's many, many dimensions of love. So if we move it just one scale up from that, I don't really want to be around this person, or I don't want to think about him anymore, or whatever, and we just resonate in that loving vibration by bringing in the senses. We took this kind of airy-fairy, energetic vibration of love, and we made it really real by giving it the third dimensional stuff, which is the senses. So when we do that, we've connected both our human self and our energetic self, my spiritual self, into one. And it's from that place that all things are possible. So I'm using this working definition, and you're more than welcome to use it as well, that Brother Ishmael Tete from Ghana, West Africa, who's one of my teachers, this is his working definition, and it really sits well with me, so I use it. And we haven't come up with anything better. But love, the definition, is to see the good and the divine in ourself, in another, and in all of life. To see the good and the divine in ourself, another, and in all of life. So think about how many stories we tell where that's not the truth. But the truth is, we are love. Every single one of us is the core of who we are. So I want to share this saying with you. It was anonymous, and I don't know who wrote it. To become enlightened, you stop running all the time and begin to walk. Once walking slows down, you stop. Once you stop, you see who you really are. Who you really are. Love. It's the truth of who you are. It's the truth of your DNA, the cells of your cells, the bones of your bones. It's the before that you chose to even come here. Love. Love is who you are. So by working that definition that you are good and divine, and you see it in yourself, in another, and in all of life, then I ask you, what story do you have sticking to you? And which one would you rather it be? For me, it's to be happy. So if I can look at the positive in all situations and look for the good and the divine, sometimes it's challenging with another. So then I'll say, maybe their offspring will cure something, or we know there's nothing to cure, just truth to reveal, right? So maybe they're going to reveal a truth for us. Maybe that person's offspring's offspring. Sometimes we have to go multiple layers to really decide. So I'm going to just leave you with that. What's your story? And is it the one you want sticking to you? Thank you for allowing me to be here, Patty, John. Thank you, Vision.